Welcome to GDSC UB. If not, then happy to have you back. Today we have one of the guest speaker with us. She's going to be sharing her journey to Google and what's the interview process. Again, if you're new here, you want to join the community, just scan this QR code. That's the membership form. There's no membership criteria. Students from all the majors are more than welcome. And yeah, all we need to see is basically your passion and your interest in Google technologies. So brief overview of what GDSC exactly is. Google Developer Student Club is a university-based community group for students who are interested in Google technologies. And what we aim is basically bridge the gap between the theory and practice by hosting technical workshops, informational sessions, and study jams. Of course, with the support of Google platforms and technical experts. Students from all the programs with interest in growing as a developer are welcome. Students in GDSC UB, they basically grow their knowledge in a peer-to-peer learning environment and use the acquired skill set to build projects to solve real world problems. We do have a solution challenge as well. It's, I think, nearby February. It's kind of like a Google hackathon. Our mission is basically to connect you guys, students who are interested in developer technologies at UB, learn from a wide range of technical topics. We have all these sessions around Google Cloud Platform, where we cover cloud computing, ML AI, and Google Cloud, Android development, and actually apply these skill sets to build some solutions or some projects. So this is actually the whole overview of all the sessions that we have. We have 4 major tracks. All are designed around Google Cloud Platform. We have cloud computing, we have data engineering, we have machine learning, and we have AI. And these are the tools that we are going to cover and already covered. So in the timeline, we have conducted our cloud computing session already. We have done our data engineering info session and the BigQuery ML info session. The lab workshops are pending and they will be happening in the consecutive weeks. And then followed by the Vertex AI. So these are some of the channels that we have. Kindly join the Slack channel. That's the first medium of communication for us. If you want to get in touch with us, if you have any issues, just DM us over there. We all are more than happy to assist you guys. We have the LinkedIn page, and we joined that as well. And this is the GDSC UB page. All the sessions that we are conducting are actually listed over there. So if you have missed any session, feel free to actually go over there and see the session here. And these are some of the social media channels. So we have a YouTube channel. Whatever sessions that we are actually hosting, they're all recorded. So if you have missed any of the sessions, feel free to actually go on the YouTube channel and go through it. It will be really helpful for you to actually do the labs that we kind of like this up. So just a quick recap. In each of these tracks, we have one quest attached to each track. So we have one quest for cloud computing, one quest for data engineering, one quest for machine learning, and one quest for AI. These quests are basically 4 or 5 labs. And once you do these labs, you actually earn a certification out of it, which you can actually flex on your social media. So we do have the Instagram channel and the Facebook page. So yeah, feel free to actually join them as well. I'll just post all of these links in the chat as well, so that if you're not able to scan right now, you can actually follow the links. And with that, let's welcome Soumita with us. Soumita is basically a software engineer. She was a UB alumni. She was, I think, master's in computer science student. And yeah, let's welcome her. And with that, Soumita can take it away. I'll just stop sharing.
So coming to more fun stuff at Google would be, first thing is the free food. For breakfast, for lunch, for dinner, we have this elaborate buffet, which is my favorite thing to talk about. There's all kind of cuisine. There's pizza, there's Indian, there's Chinese, there's even like a live crepe center where you can order your own crepes. So it's just really great. Apart from that, when we think about joining a company, there's a lot of perks that comes with it. Like in Seattle, we have the free transportation everywhere. and there's a lot of gym access. There's in general, I think, a lot of places where you can relax in the office. I'll actually show those places. I have a few images in the presentation, so I'll actually show those places. And of course there's like different kinds of discounts and perks and 401k and all the insurance that you'll need to be in US. And Google also hosts different kinds of summer picnics and holiday parties, which are in the month of May or June, and the holiday party is usually in the month of December. And those are pretty fun too. So I'd like to show you all some around the office. These are some slides, pictures from the Google SLU office at Seattle. As you can see the entire South Lake Union, the entire lake from the rooftop. It's a really great ambience. And now some of my favorite parts are in Google Office, you get these little slides where you don't have to take like elevators or staircase up and down the building. You can just access the slide and you can slide down, which is really fun. And in my building, we have this jellyfish lounge, which is very relaxing. You can just sit there and just watching those jellyfish. You can work there or just take a break, anything. And there are also various sleeping pods that that are provided just in case you want to take a rest in between your working. These are some of the images that's from the current Google summer picnic that we had. Obviously there's lots of delicious food, and there were very fun games and some fun activities like the caricature paintings. So I think that's pretty much about me talking about how it is to work at Google. And I hope that I got everyone motivated. Just before I start with the whole preparation and how to actually like get into Google or any other company for that matter, do you all have any questions? I'll just monitor the chat once. Okay, I guess there are no questions for now. Yeah.
What kind of like benefits do you get working there as far as like health insurance, 401k? Is there stock options? Like what are those like type of benefits that you get there?
Right. So, I'll talk about the 401k. 401k is basically like it's a way to avoid tax on on your daily payment. So, what you do is you can set aside some of the amount that you get monthly, and Google will match that amount. Usually, what Google does is, I think, up to a certain limit, it has a 101 match. So if you say put away $100 from your salary every month, Google will match it up to $200. So Google will give you free $200 like that. But obviously, there's a limit on that. Like you can't put away your entire salary, and Google won't match that. But there's up to, I think, couple of thousand of dollars, they will start matching 50% of it. So probably if you decide to put away like 3K, then they will match 1.5K of it. And yeah, so usually their matching is really great among all the employers that's there. And if we talk about other perks like the health insurance, I think one thing I really like about Google's health insurance is they have this option of a HSA account. And usually, what a health savings account is that you need to put away some amount of your money over there, and you can use it for your health purpose. But for Google, it's a little different. I mean, it's the same, but usually every year Google just gives you a free $1,000 in your HSA account. So you don't have to do anything for it. You just have to sign up for the health insurance, and that's like $1,000 in your HSA account for your health, for whatever you want to, like go for a dental surgery, which is probably partially covered by your dental insurance. You can use that HSA money to pay for it. So that's a really great thing about the health insurance. And did you want to know any other perks in
Uh,
particular?
yeah, like vacation, time off,
Okay.
quality of life at Google, as far as, the, flexibility, if you have to take a day off and things like that. I know it's manager by manager typically, but what is your experience there?
Yeah. So uh, I'll first tell the like the rule. The rule is from now it's from this year April it even went like a little better because like no matter what level you're on, no matter when you join the company, like 1 month back or 2 months back, everyone gets 20 paid vacation days. So it's a 20 paid vacation days immediately in your account. You don't have to work this many days to gain that. So that's a really good thing. Other than that, the work from home is, I think, pretty flexible. You can take work from home every day, and your manager probably won't even like ask you about it. But if you're talking about time off, sick days are unlimited. You have unlimited sick days, and other than that, if you just wake up one morning and you feel that you're not doing so well, you can just let the team know and be like, yeah, I'm taking a couple of hours to rest. And like if it's just a couple of hours and not the entire day, you probably don't even have to take a sick day. So you can just like take the morning off and start working from afternoon. That's completely fine. Like that has been my experience. And so there's one work from anywhere weeks. The work from anywhere weeks is up to 20 days, a calendar year. You can take 4 weeks, you can work from anywhere in the world, and you don't have to take a vacation for that. Usually, when I went to India, which is my home country, last year, I had zero vacation days because the 20-day vacation policy was not up that time. And I utilized my entire work from anywhere week. So I did not take a single vacation, but I was in India for about 5 weeks.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Quite some benefits there.
Yeah.
Any other question, guys? Awesome. Yeah, we can move ahead.
Okay. So yeah. So let's start with the main question that I get very often is how to prepare for a technical interview. So this is the entire timeline that I want you all to have in mind. I'll talk about each of this in detail in the coming slides. The first thing that you need to start doing before reaching out to me or before reaching out to anyone else is you need to start with Leadcode. That is the fundamental thing you'd have to start, and you have to have lots and lots of practice. I did not give a timeline over here because obviously the timeline varies from person to person. In my personal experience, I had started coding from May 2020 when the COVID was just starting. And I think it was by the end of July that I was feeling really comfortable to reach out to people. So that was around like 3 months for me, but those 3 months were summer vacation and I did not leave home. From the morning till night I used to be in front of Leadcode. Like that was my routine. And at night I used to watch Scooby-Doo. So that was my routine, and that took me 3 months. Obviously the routine is going to differ for everyone. I know you all have a very hectic course schedule, and the first second semester is not going to be easy at all. You all can't dedicate that much of time. And but I would suggest balancing the time between your coursework and Leadcode, because most of the technical interviews, when you go to a technical interview, you really won't be asked anything from your coursework. Now, having said that, I don't mean that to throw your coursework away and just to lead code, because honestly, as an interviewer, when I look at a resume, like just before starting the interview, when I look at a resume and I see that someone has got a 3.8 GPA, it just sets a really nice impression on me. It just tells me that, okay, this person is really hardworking. So you don't want to get a really bad grades just because you're doing lead code. So the idea is to find a perfect balance between the two. You can't ignore either of them, honestly. And for some people I know have a lot of who have told me that I can code out the whole thing very easily, but I cannot talk in front of the interviewer. So that and it's very difficult to get mock interviews, because when you're doing mock interviews with your friend, I feel there is some sort of a comfort level that you'll have, that you won't be really stressed out and you can be like a little chilled about it. So it won't really give you that feel of a really mock interview. So PRAMP is one website I found really helpful, which you don't have to pay to give a mock interview. I know some other websites, they ask you for a certain amount of dollars to set up a mock interview. But PRAMP, it is like give and take. You take someone's mock interview and you gain a mock interview from that person. So it's a both way thing, which is really beneficial because you now know how to take interviews and you know that what the other person is expecting. When you're taking an interview, you know what you want to hear. So when you're giving the interview, you will also know what you want to say. So that's a really good website you can take advantage of. The next step, when you're comfortable doing these two things and you have really prepared lead code, like really really prepared lead code, that's the time when you actually start reaching out to people for referrals, for recruiters, and you do a really nice resume. I'll talk about the resume in details a little later. So, why I say this is because I know that the referrals and recruiters, they take time to reach out to you, and probably they don't reply back. Even I find it hard to reply to all the messages I get. But you have to understand that even if one person replies back to you, that is your chance. And that is when you cannot say that, you know what, I'll schedule my interview 1 month later. That recruiter is probably going to forget about you in that 1 month, so, and move on to the next candidate, or the position is going to be gone. So only start reaching out when you feel prepared. And of course, be prepared that you won't get responses to all the messages you send. It's okay to follow up. Like, once when you send some recruiter or some person you want a referral from, you should follow up after a couple of days, because you have to understand that everyone is busy in their own schedule, and no one is purposely trying to avoid you. No one will ever do that. Like, being on the other side, I understand that at that time I wanted so much of referral helps, but standing here I probably don't have enough time to respond to everyone. And also there's like a limit to the number of referrals I can give. So I can't refer like 100 people at the same time. But at the same, so you should be more proactive in following up with anyone you reach out to, and just keep on messaging. Don't think like I did not get a response so I should feel bad and just sit. Just go on messaging that person or some other person and just keep the process going. So finally, we come to the start of the interview process. This is when the referrals have worked out, or the your application have worked out, and the recruiter has reached out to you trying to schedule an interview. Like I said, it's in your best interest to schedule the interview as soon as possible. And that's why I say that take your time to prepare and then reach out, because the recruiter has a job opening in hand. That recruiter won't be waiting for you. If you schedule the interview 2 months later, that recruiter probably might not even have a headcount by then. So you're losing your chance. So when the recruiter reaches out to you, immediately schedule the first round at least to get the process started. The process at Google is one phone interview. Now I know for some people this phone round can be skipped, but usually not for new grads or for students. If you're working in a previous company and you have a really good record there, some recruiters will skip this phone round for you. But usually for the new grads, we don't skip the phone round. We have one phone round and then we have five virtual on site. Now, the five virtual on-site is basically one round of the behavioral round, which we call the googliness round, and four coding rounds. So, in four coding rounds, there will be 45 minutes each, and you might be asked one or two questions depending on what the question is. So, if it's a really hard question, you'd be asked only one question, one round. But if it is kind of a medium question or you have solved the first question really fast, you'll be asked a second question. So that's about the process, and then you get the decision. Now, unfortunately, at Google, the decision takes a really long time. That's because after your interviewers they submit a feedback in some other companies I know like Amazon. As soon as the interviewers submit the feedback, you have a decision. But in Google, we have an intermediate process called the hiring committee. So the hiring committee will sit with all the reviews that the interviewers have written, and they will come to a conclusive decision. And usually, the hiring committee takes a little time, like you can expect about 2 weeks minimum. And then you, even after that, you don't really get a offer until you have the team placement. So the team placement is, it's a reverse way. So now you have the option to choose teams. You will probably be talking with like 2 to 3 teams, or if you're lucky you can even talk to like 4 or 5 teams and see where your interest aligns, and then you say the recruiter that okay, this is the team that I have chosen, and this is what I want to go ahead with. And then you have all the salary negotiation and all other things, the stock negotiation, and that's when you get the final offer letter. So that's the entire process, and I'll take some time to talk about some of them in detail in the coming slides. So the first thing I notice when someone asks me for a referral is their resume. And there are particular some things which I absolutely don't like in seeing in a resume, and it's you should avoid those at all cost. So this is going to be interactive. Can anyone tell me what issue we see in this resume? What is the problem?
First letter is bold and the second first name is bold and the second name is not bold. So improper formatting, I would say.
Yeah, improper formatting is right. Even other than the bold and not bold, you would notice over here, it's a really bad formatting where you have the contact details. Like the phone number is in this side, and then you have, so it's a really bad formatting. What about this resume?
Yeah, feel free to speak up. Like you guys are audible.
I would say coloring also is not needed. Like that, the blue background is also like a resume should not have like you should not have different colorful background or something. It should be plain and crisp.
The font style is sort of casual.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, that's the main thing that like bothers me in this resume is the font style. It is just so small and it's very unreadable. You don't need a fancy font in your resume ever. Like that's not a good idea at all. And what about this?
The photo is not needed.
Right, right. So try to avoid your photo in the resume at all costs because it really tells nothing about the role. Like if it was a different kind of role, that's a separate thing. But for a software engineering, I don't think you should put a photo in the resume. So tell you what a good resume looks like. I think this is a really good resume because the font is very readable and it has all the things that I want to see. I want to see what the education where this person has studied. I want to see what their work experience have been and their skills. And for new grad, I would suggest you all have a separate section for projects where you because not everyone has work experience, so you should have a separate section over here saying the projects that you have been working on. And one more thing I really like about this resume is there are a lot of numbers, as you can see. So this tells me the impact. So it is not only what you did, it is how it helped. So you have to have an impact of your work. I did a classification model. But so what? Like you must have done it for a reason, right? So it's very necessary to quantify those things. So for and the first and the foremost thing I always say is your resume should be one page. No matter how much things you have done in your life, no matter how many achievements you have had, you have to fit it in one page. You have to cherry pick those achievements which you think is necessary for the role, but never have a two-page resume. That is a absolute no-no. Number two is the spelling check. I have seen some resumes having spelling mistakes. It just tells me that you were lazy and you did not go through your resume over and over again. And the third point that I have said is always quantify your achievements. Always say that you improve the accuracy by this person. Now, obviously, not every time it is feasible, but try to do it as much as possible. Use numbers to show what your impact has been. All this is also very important. I have had so many resumes sent to me in docx format. Now you have to understand, when you send a resume in docx format, firstly I cannot open it in my mobile. It just ruins the whole resume. The formatting, everything is just gone. And secondly, it takes really a minute of your time to convert it into a PDF format. So please, whenever you're just sending it to someone, take that extra 1 minute and convert your resume into a PDF format and only then send it. The last point is actually difficult. It has been difficult for me to follow as well, but it really works when you apply to different type of roles. So when I was applying for software engineering roles and also for machine learning roles. Now, a software engineering role won't really care about if you have built a NLP model. They will probably care more if you have done some front end work or some like API handling and stuff like that. But on the other hand, when you're applying for a machine learning role, you really need to include like all the NLP work, all the data science work that you have done there. So even if it's difficult, try to have at least two or three versions of your resume. Maybe not for every company, but at least like this is for the machine learning roles I'll apply, and this is for the software engineering role I'll apply. So that really helps in the shortlisting your resume. At least I would suggest having two different types of resume. So now I'll move on to the type of coding questions that
Uh, Soumita, we
really.
have a question
Oh,
in the chats. So sorry.
yeah,
We have
sure.
one question if you can take that.
No worries. Yeah. Which is the better, okay, the Calibri or Times New Roman font? I personally like the Calibri a lot. I think my resume has been in Calibri, but Times New Roman is also really good. And there are some other fonts as well. I'm forgetting the names. I think it's Arial or something like the font that I've used for the presentation. I don't think that's too bad too. But what yeah. Okay, no, this Roboto. Yeah, I kind of like this font as well. But yeah, I think the main thing is the font should be very readable. It should not be stylish. If you like looking at the font with all cursive writings and everything, don't use it. Just use a very simple font which is extremely readable, like even if I'm too much away from the screen also. Any other question I've missed? No. Do you all have any other question regarding the resume writing?
Any
I'll
question, guys? Nope. Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I'll move on to the type of coding questions we get. So, one of the coding questions that uh, I really like to ask in interviews is graph based problems. So, graph based problems can be of different types. It can be of BFS, DFS, and DFS with memoization. And I would particularly like people to emphasize on how valuable DFS with memoization is, and practice different type of problem, because I think this is DFS with memo is a relatively new concept as compared to BFS and DFS. Usually prepare people I've seen prepare for BFS and DFS, but they forget about the memoization. So that's a really nice concept that you all should be knowing in an interview. The other things are trees. Trees is usually like post order, pre order, in order. And if you're really, really unlucky, you can get a segmentation tree. Now, let me tell you that segmentation trees are really important data structure, but not that you will see it in all interviews. It's a relatively harder data structure, but once you're very comfortable with normal binary trees, I would suggest you to take a look into the segmentation tree and not really leave it out, because there are some type of problems that can be solved very easily with segmentation tree, rather than trying to use all different type of data structures together and then no solution comes out of it. So only after you prepare finishing the trees, only then move on to the segmentation tree. And of course that's like searching and sorting, like binary search, heap sort, and all those things. When I say heap sort, I would also like to emphasize on the quick select algorithm. I think it's a really nice and very powerful algorithm, and it's worth knowing quick select. There are heaps, clean heap, max heap. There are stacks, and one of the favorite things to ask that has been over my experience of all interviews is that once you solve a problem with stack, uh, the interviewer asks you, can you do it with recursion? So when you think about a stack approach, always think about how you can also do it using recursion, because they're basically the same thing. In string and array, two most important concepts you will come across is the two pointer and the sliding window. And lastly, not my favorite, but you really have to go through the dynamic programming. Now, dynamic programming is, I've had so many people ask me about it, that is dynamic programming really essential? Now, I cannot really predict whether you will get dynamic programming in your interview or not. That's completely up to interviewer, what kind of questions they like. But there are, but I would suggest going through this particular course, the Grokking Dynamic Programming, because in my experience, there are certain dynamic programming problems that you need to know the solution beforehand. I mean, it's very difficult to come up with the solution at that point. So some basic problems, like coin change or something, I don't exactly remember, those are worth knowing beforehand. And also, I would suggest dynamic programming, you need not always have to come up with a mathematical equation. Like I said before, you can use DFS with memoization. You can use that, and you can solve it, and you can solve a DP question without even using it, because memoization is basically another way of saying that you are storing the thing, storing the previous values. So try to just go through this course has been really helpful. But yeah, I mean, don't be too scared of DP problems. Maybe you won't come across it, but it's always better to go prepared for an interview. And lastly, we have the system design. Honestly, I have not been asked too many system design questions because I never interviewed for a SD2 role. But if you ever interview for a SD2 role, it is mandatory that you should be prepared with system design questions. And one of the most useful resource is the Grokking course again for the system design. And when I talk about these courses, obviously these courses are paid. So I would suggest don't try to buy it alone. Maybe get a group and buy it together, and you all can share the materials. That way you can, I mean, it's easier for students. So when I talk about this coding question, being an interviewer, I want to like say something very honestly. When I ask a coding question in the interview, I'm I'm not expecting you to invent an algorithm at that moment. One, you're that would take like probably a genius to do that, to come up with an algorithm of your own. And two, you're already stressed in that moment, and I understand that. So I'm not expecting you to come out of the blue with something. I'm expecting that and hoping that you have seen a type of that question before. You have practiced enough to know that okay, these kind of problems take these kind of algorithms to solve it. And you have to be that well prepared. It's like some people have come and told me that I have seen this type in the interview. You tell me that I've seen this kind of question before. Obviously I will change the question, but I'm expecting you to come prepared. I'm not expecting that you have never seen anything like a graph question at all. That means that you're not well prepared. The only time when you should tell your interviewer that you have seen this question before is if you have got that exact question in any of your previous rounds. Because if you don't tell that, one, you're being dishonest, and second, you're ruining your chances because they won't have enough data points to evaluate you on, because your two rounds are going to be identical and the second round is going to be completely cut off. And that's the only time when you should say that, yes, this is the same question. But if you have seen, like, if you have practiced a variant of that question, that's really good for you, because I know that you have practiced well enough.
A quick question here. Can you suggest some of the resources for students who are not from the computer science background and they just want to start their journey with coding and how they can actually learn DSA?
Right. So I again think that the best way to learn data structure and algorithm, I know there is a book called Cracking the Coding Interview, but and it's great, and it's a great book. I want to say Cracking the Coding Interview is a really great book. But for some people, I know reading does not really help, and that's when I suggest that just start coding. I know someone very personally who had not written a single line of code before starting his master's. Like, he always used to write on paper, he had never really coded it. And he had a very difficult first few months, like 3 months. You'd always get like syntax errors and everything. But that's how you learn. Unless you start coding, I mean, even if you're from a different background, I would say start with the easy questions of Leadcode. Because unless you do a hands-on thing, you're going to, just by reading a book, you are still going to be very nervous, and your coding flow won't be that fluent in the interview. So you really need to start coding in the interview, for the interview. And that's like my first, like, you don't need to go to any course or anything. Just get a lead code subscription in a group, start lead code, see the solution. Obviously you won't have the solutions immediately. See the solutions. I always say, don't waste your time. Like, if you're stuck on a question for more than 15-20 minutes and you have given enough thought and it doesn't come to you, just see the solution and try to apply that solution in the next questions that you see.
Cool. Thanks a lot. There's one quick question in the chat.
Yep.
Take that
I'll
as well.
just take a look. Oh, sorry. Um, should we practice coding with a text editor instead of a IDE? Um, I would say initially you should start coding you should start with IDs, because IDs are helpful to make you understand any kind of syntactical error you're having. And then probably you can, honestly, right now, I think most of the companies have their coding paths like ID. We don't use Google Docs anymore for coding rounds. We have a separate IDE for the coding round. So it would be good. And okay, is LLD also a focus for SD2 course? I'm sorry, what is LLD?
So it's low-level system design. Of
Okay,
coding.
I'm not really familiar with SD2 roles, because I've only given SD2 interview once for Amazon, and they had asked a very general question about a system that I want to design. But yeah, so I'm not really familiar with SD2 roles, so I'll not really comment on that. Yeah, cracking the coding interview. Yeah, that's right thing. For someone who has 2 years of experience, summary section in the resume. I honestly don't like the summary section. I think it eats up a lot of your space on the resume page, because it's a one page and it eats up a lot of resume page, and you don't have enough to talk about in your projects and experience. So I would suggest just leaving the summary out. Is there currently a hiring freeze in Google? So we won't say the hiring freeze, but I think in general, for a lot of companies, the open roles have reduced. But yes, I mean, if you go to Google's career page, you will still see some options. Maybe not like a bulk of options, but obviously you see some options. How many lead code problems you suggest do before applying? Okay, so this how many is a very difficult question. My first because you can feel comfortable with lead code even after doing 200 coding problems. Um, it took me above 500 to get that level of confidence. But and again, that's just a number for me. It can be 800 for you, it can be 200 for you. So you don't just like measure it with a number, you measure it with your level of confidence. Can you tell me what kind of questions are asked in interviews for ML computer? I have not had the opportunity to get any ML interviews because I was a new grad. I had no undergrad work experience. So no machine learning roles actually like offered me an interview. To someone who's 3 plus, is it okay to yeah, by all means apply to university grad roles, they are really great. And it's also one of the like they are hiring in bulk, so you have more chances over there. So no matter what your experience is, go for the university grad roles. If you're rejected because of your experience, like because if you're highly qualified or something, they would probably give you another round of interview. They will tell that you better apply for this role instead. So by all means, please apply for the university grad roles. I think that's it. I'll just move on with my presentation, and I'll leave some time in the end again to for you all to ask me questions. Okay, so some of the tips. First thing, when you start an interview and you see a question, please discuss your idea with the interviewer and make sure that person is on the same page before you jump to coding. So this means that you may have seen a question before and you feel that I know how to solve this, and you immediately start coding. Now, one thing that person does, the interviewer doesn't know what's going on in your mind. So you first should discuss your idea. And secondly, maybe you have mistaken that question to be something similar that you have seen. So you starting to code and writing a whole solution and taking up like half an hour of your interview and then realizing that, okay, this is a different problem. This whole situation can be avoided if you just confirm with your interviewer that, okay, this is what I'm thinking and this is the way to solve it. Your interviewer will let you know immediately if that person prefers a different way to solve it. And it's better to go that way because the interviewer is trying to help you. So always make sure you discuss before you start coding. The second thing again is listen to hints. Uh, they are not trying to distract you from your coding. They are probably just noticing something, a path where you're going wrong, and trying to bring you back to the right path. So do listen to hints. And there's no problem in asking for help if you're stuck, because at the end, when I have to submit an interview feedback, I have to I have to literally tell that, okay, these are the lines of code this person has written. So if you're just stuck and you're not asking for help and you're not coding, it becomes difficult for the interviewer to write feedback because they don't have anything to write feedback on. So you can politely ask for a little help that, okay, this is the problem I'm facing, can you guide me how to solve this? And do produce some kind of code, and don't just discuss and end the interview. You have to write some kind of code. And this is an important point. I've seen many candidates do this, that they feel that if you're not asked the time and space complexity, they feel that, okay, I've gotten away with it. You should take that initiative to discuss time and space complexity, because that tells me that you have really understood your algorithm. It's not something that you have memorized. You have really understood that, okay, this is a binary search, so that's why it's taking log n. So do make sure to discuss that. And this is another very important thing. Don't take the googliness round very casually. Not googliness in general, any behavioral round. I have taken only one behavioral interview so far, and the candidate I was asking that, can you give me this example or this experience? That candidate was just telling me, I've never had this experience before. Now, obviously, you won't have all experiences in your lifetime, but if for all the answers you tell me that you have nothing to share with me, then I have nothing to write for your feedback. So do prepare some stories, do prepare some experiences, and just tell. And it can be hypothetical. You can say that, okay, if I was in a situation like this, I would do this. Not necessarily that you have to have been in that situation, but at least say something. Don't be like that, I've never been in this situation, I can't comment. And this point is also very important. So when I take interviews, one thing, in the end, I leave some time for you to ask me question. And that time, if a candidate asks me, how have I done in the interview, it's very difficult for me to answer that question because I'm really not allowed to share feedback with you at that moment. And at the same time, I understand that that person is very eager, but that is a question you should avoid asking in your interviewer because we are in an uneasy spot. And instead, you should ask something really positive, like about the company culture or what project she's working on, so that interviewer will be very enthusiastic to answer you and will have a good conversation, because that's the last thing you talk to your interviewer about and it leaves an impression. So you want to leave a very positive impression. And if everything goes well, we come to the team placement. And I have seen many people rushing through this process. So there are a few tips I have for the team placement. Now, yes, you won't get your offer letter before the team placement, but that doesn't mean you should rush through the process. If you have any specific work area like back end or front end, let your recruiter know that. Any location preference, let your recruiter know that. Talk to a few options before just finalizing one, because you might be a better fit in another team than the first manager that you talk to. So talk to a few options and select the team where you really want to work. It should be a good match for you, and you should not again rush this process. This is every time I say this, because I've seen people making mistakes in this process and they join a team they are not happy in. Always remember all the fun things that I talked about in Google, the jellyfish lounge or the summer picnic or the holiday party. That's going to be there for like only 3 or 4 days a year. You have to work in your team every day, and it's really the team that matters. I say it's not the company, it's the team that matters. You have to be happy in your team. The company can be the very best, but if your team is not a perfect match for you, you are not going to be happy in that company. So do not rush this process. Take enough time and talk to your recruiter through it. I think that's the end of my presentation, and I'd let you all ask anything you all want to for the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, good.
So I have a question. Like before joining to Google, did you have any like prior work experience in any of the companies, either in India or in the US?
Yeah, so I had about 6 months experience in Bloomberg. When I joined Bloomberg, I was a new grad, and right after I think 2 or 3 months, 2 months into Bloomberg, I had a recruiter of Google reach out to me. So about 2 months into Bloomberg, I started. So I don't know if that really counts as a work experience because I was like still in the onboarding process. But yeah, I applied for a new grad role at Google. Like it was not an experience role; it was a new grad role.
Yeah, good.
So I see that you're applying, like you were talking about the SDE roles, but like people in this field also try for machine learning and data scientist roles. So the coding round for such roles, if you're aware of that, so the coding round of such roles, do they also have BFS and DFS and all those algorithms, or is it just limited to strings and arrays?
Right. So in Bloomberg and in Amazon, I have seen even in Apple, I have seen Apple had undergone a machine learning role interview. It was not really exactly machine learning; it was hardware plus machine learning. But all the tech companies like really ask you coding questions, even if it is a machine learning role. They will ask you coding question. They can ask you BFS, DFS definitely, and there will be a separate round focused on machine learning. So if you look at my if you have seen my slide where I talk about 5 rounds, there's going to be 6 rounds for you, where probably 3 rounds is going to be focused on coding, and 2 rounds is going to be focused on machine learning. But that doesn't mean you can completely get away with machine learning, like coding completely. And obviously there are some companies that will probably not ask you coding question, but all the big techs that I've seen, they usually have at least 1 or 2 coding rounds, no matter what role you apply for, if it's related to computer science.
Cool. Any other questions? Yeah.
What type of experience did you have during your undergrad? Like internships?
Sorry, that was
So
not.
the question is like, in your undergrad, what kind of experience did you had, internships and all those things?
Okay, so my undergrad was very different from my master's experience. My undergrad, I was only focused on machine learning. I wanted a machine learning role so bad, I can't tell you. I had like 2 publications in recommendation system. And right now, if you ask me, I don't even know what a recommendation system is anymore. So, so yeah, my undergraduate experience has been completely, all my internships have completely been in machine learning. But yeah, unfortunately, I could not land a machine learning role because machine learning roles, I think, in my experience, I've faced is they ask for a lot of work experience. They ask for like either a PhD, which I didn't want to do, and or a really good work experience. And I had 0 years of work experience, so machine learning role was really difficult in that way.
All right, we can take one last question because we're running out of time. Anyone has any question? Yeah.
So right after joining Google as a new grad, so what all difficulties did you face? Like we are hearing from our seniors, like they are facing difficulties, like adjusting the work environment. So how was it?
Right. So again, as I said, uh, it's very specific to the team you join, and that's one thing I say always. For me, the transition was really smooth, and I had a really supportive team, and the workload was, fingers crossed, really less. But I have known teams where right after a new grad joining the team, they had given to write a whole design doc and implement a whole feature alone from start to the end. So there are teams like that in Google as well. So luckily, I was not in one of those teams, and I had a very smooth onboarding process. But usually, there are lots of resources, but I cannot assure you how hectic it's going to be. It's completely based on your team.
Cool. So, yeah, no other questions. We're running out of time right now, so thanks a lot, Soumita. I think it was really helpful for everyone, whatever the tips and tricks you actually shared. I just got like one more thing before I end this session. I'll quickly share my screen, and you can, Soumita, you can drop if you want to. I think we had all of the questions that we already had. There's some questions in the chat. Maybe I'll follow up with you regarding that. But so far, yeah, we're good. Okay, yeah, so we got some swags for you guys. Please fill the feedback form. The one who actually gives the best response gonna get one Google merchandise. It's gonna be a hoodie, might be a sweatshirt, might be a tumbler, might be a hat. It's totally up to you what you want. Having said that, don't give us biased feedback, please. Kindly give us honest feedbacks, and we'll really appreciate that. For those of who actually came a little late, kindly check in once. That was the first QR code. If you came late, kindly check in the event. It helps us to keep the record of the attendance and everything. And with that, I think, yeah, we're pretty much done here. We will be having a group photo at the end. If you want to be part of it, you can come here. Else, have a great weekend. Bye, guys.